Great. Hello, how are you? You're very welcome here to our Parent and Guardian Information Evening here at Technological University Dublin, coming to you from the City campus tonight. My name's Rachel O'Connor and I'm going to be hosting tonight's event along with my colleague Dave Kilmartin. So we are both from the Campus Life Services here in City Campus. So we look after the health, wellbeing and student development areas of the campus. I'm just going to quickly introduce you to our panel tonight. And just to give you a running order of how tonight is going to work out, you'll see on the website that there is a question box. So in the second half of the information evening, we're going to take your questions. So if you want to pop the questions in there as we go along, then we have a couple of colleagues who are having a look through those questions and we will get to those in the latter half of the session. But we have been fielding a lot of questions from parents over the last couple of weeks. So we have kind of gathered all those questions together and we've gathered a panel together and we're going to try and kick off the evening by asking some of those questions that have already come in. So to introduce the panel tonight, we have Siobhan Daly, who's an assistant head in our College of School of Health Sciences. We have Noel O'Connor, who's our current principal of the City campus and also the Director of Student Development. We have Conor Ryan, who is our Medical Director for the City Centre Student Health Service. We have Raymond Coyne and Elaine O'Connor from our Finance and Accommodation Office. We have Moya Browne, who's our Deputy Students' Union President here at City Campus. We have Jennifer Farrell, who is our Head of Student Administration, is actually going to be moving to a new role as Head of Campus Life shortly. And we have Hilliard, who's our Pastoral Care and Chaplaincy Coordinator for the whole of the TU campus. So as we open up this evening, I'm just going to ask Dr. Noel O'Connor, our current President of City Campus, just to welcome you to the event and to talk a little bit about City Campus, and then I'm just going to put a couple of questions to him. So Noel, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And can I just, on behalf of all my colleagues in TU Dublin and on behalf of all our students, welcome everybody to this evening's information evening. It is something that we've been running now for several years. Normally we would be doing it in Bolton Street and I would be standing in front of a packed room. But it really is great to get the opportunity to speak to you this evening. We have found over the years from feedback that the event has proved to be very, very helpful in, if you like, answering questions, but also giving a sense of all the kinds of supports that are available to students. So as parents, as guardians, as students, as family members, it really is a great opportunity just to pick up information. And we will answer as much as we can this evening, and we will pick them up in terms of the chat box and respond over the coming days. So on behalf of all my colleagues, on behalf of all of us, we're here to answer your questions and to give you a sense of what TU Dublin is all about.
Brilliant, Noel. I have a couple of questions here that have already come in from parents over the last couple of weeks. I suppose one of the questions that they would like to know is, obviously we became, we're the first technological university and, there's a huge amount of development happening in Grange Gorman. It's a very exciting time for us here at the university. Do you want to I suppose, reassure and tell parents just a little bit about how all that development is progressing and still progressing despite our current restrictions?
Yeah, very good, Rachel. I suppose just to touch on TU Dublin, we are the first TU in Ireland. We were designated last year, but I think it's probably true to say that our origins go back to 1887, which is really over 130 years ago, and to higher education, higher technical education in Ireland, in particular to Kevin Street, where it all started. But our Conservatory of Music is celebrating 130 years next year. And the likes of Bolton Street is well over 100 years. Conroe Street, 75 years, but really, really a long, long tradition. And I suppose that the main essence of the TU education is this notion of developing understanding and application. So it's that combination that really has been really, really important. Just in terms of ourselves, we chose TU because we felt it best reflected, the technological university best reflected our history and our origins. And there's a world-class network that we're linking into. TU Delft, TU Munich, TU Eindhoven, Ryerson University in Toronto would nearly have a very, very similar background to ourselves, or MIT in Australia. So there's a huge network of technological universities that are there. And I suppose the essence is this, again, strong emphasis on engineering and on technology. Within TU Dublin, we would account for about 20% of all ICT programs in the country and students in the country, about 20% of all STEM students in the country. We would have this week, we welcomed 5,500 first-year CAO students. So really is overall about 28,000 students. I often say it's the size of a very, very large town. So really, it is a very, very interesting time for us, a great time to come in as a student, because you have this transition from a large technological institution to a technological university. We've been offering degree programs now for many, many decades with our own degree awarding powers. The TU designation now helps us, if you like, in terms of promoting ourselves internationally in particular. So really, in terms of Grangegorman, that campus development is happening. I'm speaking from Grangegorman this evening. And it's wonderful to look out on a 70-acre campus that is really, really coming together. And between here and Christmas, many of our buildings will be coming on stream, and many students who are joining this week will be transitioning to these new buildings and will be able to avail of the facilities that are there, and all of them very much student-centred.
Brilliant. And Noel, as part of your role in the university, you're also the Director for Student Development. Yeah. And we've had to put in place, we've always had excellent student services in what was DIT and became TU. But, you know, over the course of the last 6 months, the importance of the holistic and pastoral support that's available to students has become critically important. As director of that area, would you like to tell us a little bit more about what provisions are in place?
Yes, just to say, really being honest about it this evening, that you will hear a lot from my colleagues, and I'm only just going to flag some of the kind of supports that are there and that are really targeting students. In terms of the student counselling you have mentioned, we have a dedicated team of counsellors that are available to support students. We have a whole chaplaincy and pastoral care service, which is there. We have clubs, societies, sports. We have dedicated medical centres, dedicated accommodation service, financial aid service. We have a dedicated academic writing centre to support students. Not students who may have problems with maths, but also students who are very good at maths and who want to really move up a gear. We have academic writing centre, maths learning centre, as I mentioned. We have a careers development centre. One of the hallmarks of TU Dublin would be that notion of being career ready and trying to really help students prepare for that transition into the world of work. Dave Kilmartin will be talking about that in great detail later on. We have our Students' Union, which is really, really important support as well. We have I know some parents this evening will have been involved in the access orientation last week. And so we have a strong access office. We have a strong disability office. My colleague, Jennifer Farrell, will be talking about the whole student administration area. We have student one-stop shops. And all of these services have moved online, in particular since March. And the university has dedicated huge resources to making that possible. All our students completed their programs last semester, completed their exams, completed repeat exams, all online. And this year, what we're doing is we started off, we are doing a combination of around 20% on campus and 80% online to comply with, if you like, all the guidance and regulations that are there. That's a rough estimate. It varies from program to program. But going back to TU Dublin, it's strong focus on laboratory work, on studio work, on making things. These need students to come in onto the campus, and we have arranged sessions to protect those learning events to make sure that they're there. We put in place a huge resource around online learning and technology mediated learning. And we have, I think, about 1,400 staff that even since July have undertaken refresher programs in that area. We've invested heavily in learning platforms to support that. And we've obviously invested very heavily in terms of social distancing and making all our buildings compliant. So, you know, as we speak, our libraries are open on a click and collect basis. Our elite sports are open, our research centres are open, our incubation centres are open, and all our practical classes are happening in terms of laboratories. So really, and it's all happening. We moved from phase 2 to phase 3 very, very quickly. I don't think anybody really anticipated that we were going to be back in this phase 3 so quickly. And really the trick is now to try and retain it, that we don't go to phase 4, and to support our students and to support our staff and ensure that everybody gets the best experience possible.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Noel. To move on to that, actually my colleague Dave is going to introduce Siobhan Daly from the Colleges in Sciences and Health. Dave?
Great, thanks Rachel. I wanted to introduce Siobhan again. Siobhan is a long-standing supporter of this event, so she's and huge experience in the whole area of supporting students in transition at the 3rd level. One of the key questions, Siobhan, that parents have been asking us is about students who haven't previously studied some subjects, be they physics, chemistry, biology at Leaving Cert level, and that can come to engineering as well. How would you support students to manage that? What should they do?
Okay. Most students, if we take science, for example, most students will have done 1, maybe 2 of the 3 sciences. Very few will have done 3. A lot of them will be required to study the 3 of them at some level. If we talk about engineering, it might be a similar situation where they might have done physics and they might be required to do a bit of chemistry and they might not have done that before. If we look at business, they might have done accounting, but not business studies. So this comment goes right across all of our disciplines. And we absolutely, as lecturers, understand that there will be students in every class that will not have studied the subject before. And I'm from physics, and you know, lots of students that I teach in 1st year have not done. I will have my first class with my 1st year group tomorrow. There'll be about 90 students, and I know that about 15% of them will have done physics before. I can absolutely say that most of them, if not all, will pass at the end of the year, because we presume that students don't have a knowledge. And so we go from, and we build the building blocks from the ground up. And the secret for students is to move along that path with us, to engage with all the classes. I know they're online, and that can be hard because it requires a little bit of self-discipline that, let's face it, none of us are good at, never mind students. So it does really require the students to just keep up to date with the material. We have our really accessible and exciting learning platform, e-learning platform called Brightspace. It's really easy to use. The students will have access to every module they're learning or they're going through within Brightspace. The notes for classes will be there. The lectures, the links to the lectures, the online lectures will be there. They will be recorded and made available so students can engage with them afterwards. We're always happy to take questions. For all of our 1st year groups, we have tutorials in the core subjects. So that's an opportunity for students to come along and not listen to me rabbiting on like I am now, but it's an opportunity for the students to ask some questions. And I know a lot of us as lecturers have put little things in place to encourage students to ask questions, so that we have the questions before we go into tutorials, before we go into class. And that's all about getting involved, engaging, and making the best use of the time we have with the students. Noel has already mentioned the Maths Learning Centre for students who are struggling a little bit with maths. The Writing Centre for those who have to do, you know, maybe essays and a thesis. So the support available for all of those skills. So it's not just about the modules you're doing, but it's about the skills as well.
Great, Siobhan, thanks for that. And I think the key thing is just distilling what you said there, that engage early, and if you have any troubles, communicate. It's really, really important to communicate and let people know how you're getting on, and every issue can be really supported. Just one, obviously a very topical question now you mentioned by yourself and all about the blended learning and the on-campus versus the online, just that balance from the subjects that have the practicals. Could you kind of the approach to that, please?
Okay, I'm going to speak specifically about sciences, the College of Sciences and Health, but I know it's the same right across the piece, whether it's in terms of food innovation or engineering or music or whatever. All of those have a practical element. So our students, for example, are in to do not all of their labs, but the labs in their core subjects. So in my school, every student is in 1 day a week doing practical work. Last week we had 2nd, 3rd and 4th years commenced. Tomorrow we'll have our first group of first years in. We did orientation with our science students on Monday. So we had optometry students in first year in today. So students generally are engaging with the core practical work 1 day per week, and they attend campus for that. Many of our programs are accredited with professional bodies and with regulating bodies as well. So the practical aspects, for example, of our clinical programs are absolutely core. The practical aspects of our skills-based programs, be it physics or chemistry or engineering or music or food or whatever it might be, are key. So students are coming on site once, maybe twice a week to undertake that. And it's particularly for first years, it's a nice opportunity to meet other students face to face, to begin to build bonds with your colleagues. I would say, just in terms, because I'm just watching the questions coming in, one of the questions was in relation to COVID, and I won't go on at length, but just to say a huge resource has been put into making every classroom, every laboratory, every practice lab safe for every student. And as long as the students follow the directions about where to be and masks and all the rest. So we've done an awful lot of work to make the campus safe for all of us to be able to engage in that practical work.
Great. Thank you, Siobhan. And I see one question that's is emergent in the chat there as well about students' capacity to come into Dublin from outside Dublin. The government have stated that students can attend for education purposes. You can actually make that journey. So hopefully we'll lay people's fears there. You've mentioned the last question was around the Maths Learning Centre, and I think that's being covered. So math support is there, and ask early, and you can make appointments to get grants and support. I'll pass you back to Rachel now.
Thank you, David.
No, and actually there's quite a lot of questions coming in and around COVID-19 and all of our obligations on that. So I'm going to introduce Conor Ryan. Conor is our medical director here for, as I said, for the Student Health Centre and City Campus. And Conor, you know, some of the common questions that have come in from parents in the last few weeks have been, you know, will the medical centre be offering face-to-face services? What happens if somebody, you know, starts to feel unwell on the campus? You know, what do they do? So what sort of measures have you and your team in the health service and provisions put in place for the students over the coming semester?
Sure. Hi, Rachel. Thanks very much for inviting me this evening. So in the health centre, we will be still offering in-person consultations. Okay, we've always done that, and it's a very important part of what we do. With the changes that have occurred recently, we won't be offering as many in-person consultations. We're going to try and make use of phone consultations, video consultations as much as possible, just to try and reduce the footfall through the health centre. But everybody who contacts us will have a phone consultation first and foremost, and then following that, if it's deemed necessary, perhaps for an examination or to take a blood sample or something along those lines, then absolutely yes, we'll make provision for any student who needs to attend the health centre to attend in person. And we'll have all the necessary arrangements in place in terms of social distancing, in terms of health and safety precautions, hand hygiene measures, so that students know they can attend in safety.
Just in terms of if a student does feel unwell, there's a huge system of backup on the campus. First of all, we're asking people if they are feeling unwell not to come to campus. Every student has been asked to fill out a self-declaration form, so so we can pick up high-risk students. And as part of the orientation, we've been asking every student to watch a very detailed video on how we keep safe as a community. But Conor, thanks very much for that reassurance around that. And as well, of course, as all GP clinics are trying to get the message out, as well as dealing with COVID, you are, of course, a regular, student health service, and it's business as usual in terms of other, other needs that students might have. That, the GP service functions in its entirety, not, despite COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Go over to you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rachel, and thanks, Conor. Yeah, I'm going to move on to Jennifer, who looks after all the student administration, registrations, student cards, the whole lot of that first step of getting registered as part to become a TU Dublin student. But Jennifer, just one question from one of the parents is we applied for a grant, so how does that impact the whole registration process?
Good evening, everybody. So anyone who's applied for grant as part of the online registration process, when they go on to register, you're given a number of options. If somebody has applied for a grant, they're able to tick that box that there's a grant application, put in the grant application number, and that'll allow you to complete the registration without paying any fee. There's also the option for people who are paying fees themselves. They can pay in 3 installments. So it's 25% upfront, 25% before the 31st of October, and the final installment by the 31st of January.
Great, thank you for that. And that covers the second area and the whole payment of fees. And just getting that invitation to register, Jennifer, that process.
Yeah, the invitation to register, that will come, that goes to the email address that the student applied with through the CAO. I know that some of them have come. The first round ones would have gone out last week, and the second round I think went out on Friday. So that's where the email will go, and that email within it, it will have it'll have the login and password for the registration system, and also details of their IT logins as well, and their student email address. And a lot of correspondence then following on will come through the student email address. Also then there's a link available for the ID card for the photo to be uploaded, and they'll be posted out within a couple of days. Once the photo has been uploaded, they're being posted out on a daily basis.
Great, to just answer one question I was about to ask.
Yeah,
that's great, thank you for that.
Great.
We jump back to Rachel.
Yeah, no, I was actually just going to field some of those questions to Jennifer there, Dave, that were coming through. Jennifer, just questions in and around there about, as I said, about the photos and the ID cards and timetables. We have a link up on the website about timetables. I think people, so classes are beginning from the 5th of October, but it's staggered across different disciplines. So, while some disciplines will have started on the 5th of October, some are starting a little bit later and maybe doing their orientations next week. And I see Siobhan just wants to come in there as well. Yes,
I'll be very brief, just to say that in the College of Sciences and Health, which are all of our science programs on City Campus, we're starting this week. So orientation happened yesterday, and so we're already up and running and lecturing and doing our thing with the first years.
No, that's great, Siobhan. And actually, yeah, no, myself and Dave have been delivering orientations, and we've over 1,000 students who have been through the orientation process in the last 2 days, and another 1,500 or so will do their orientations between now and Friday. And then we have another similar number of about 1,000 students who will do orientations on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday next week. So in some disciplines, teaching will start on the 5th of October. And for some, because of first, second and third round offers, some of the schools and colleges will start teaching the week after. So if you do keep an eye, and then orientations did change a little bit with the level 3 restrictions. Some colleges were hoping to bring students in small pods. When level 3 came in, that changed a little bit because of the new restrictions in. So there has been a little bit of changing things up this week, and all of those details should be going online now. But I'm aware College of Business are running their orientations. College of Engineering have been running their orientations this week and are ready to start classes this week and next week. As Siobhan said, Sciences and Health have been running their orientations and will start next week. And I think maybe some of our colleagues in the College of Arts and Tourism, particularly in the areas of creative arts and gaming. I think I saw some of the things. Their orientation will be happening the week of the 5th of October, and timetables and everything will be mattered there. In some instances, we have to wait for numbers to see what way labs and all practical work and everything could have been started out. So don't worry, you will receive timetables, and things will get up and running very, very quickly. Okay, so just moving on now to Moya, who is our deputy president. I was about to call you vice president, but deputy president of the city campus. So Moya has been a student of DIT and a sabbatical officer in the area of welfare last year for TU Dublin, and is now a sabbatical, as I said, in the role of deputy president for the city campus. So she's just here to give us a little bit of a, I suppose, an idea about, what's happening in terms of the student perspective. So Moya, do you want to talk a little bit about the students union, what supports they're going to be providing? And I suppose there's lots of questions here about how the events are going to be run for students. Will they be online, face-to-face? Probably a lot of concern in and around that.
I think so. I think there's a lot of concern about that. But yeah, the SU offers loads of support. We offer an advice service, and it's free and it's completely independent from the college. So this means that we can fully represent students on any issues they might have. One of the things we're really good at is signposting students. There's so many services in the college, and sometimes it can be tricky to find out what one you need. And we're really good at knowing which one suits which student. We offer advice on stuff like financial matters, like applying for SUSI and applying for SAF, because sometimes those forms can be tricky. I'm sure parents and guardians know that after having to help with those kind of forms. We're also there to help with that kind of thing. We do lots of different things in the SU, and at the moment all of our events for semester 1 are going to be completely online, and we have Welcome Week next week and the week after, and everything's online and free. I would be a super spreader if I was attending all the orientations, so they're completely online. Hopefully I'll get to meet some of the students throughout the year, but yeah, that's it. And sometimes it can be difficult to reach out to services and stuff like that, and I know that personally from being a student for 3 years in Bolton Street. Like the Maths Learning Centre, sometimes you're kind of going, oh, I'm doing engineering, I've been doing that maths for years, I've been always really good at it, but sometimes you just need that extra push. And I think that's what parents are really good at, is giving that little extra push to students and just saying you can reach out and you can do that. And there's so many services to avail of. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for that, Moya. I'm going to jump in now and ask Alan to make his contribution. Father Alan is a coordinator and lead of the Pastoral Care and Chaplaincy service in City Campus, and obviously supporting colleagues across the other 2 campuses. Alan, one of the key things parents, and you're often worried about sons or daughters about what's going on and how they're doing. Just from your experience of working with students, what are the key things to think about and look out for?
Well, hi everybody, and it's good to talk to you. And thanks, Dave, for fielding that question. I think the one thing that is very important for any student is that if there's anything going on in their lives, they're not managing things academically, that they get to see one of the academic staff quickly. I was asking some of the second years, I did a survey with them this week to say, what were the spookiest things about first year? And some of the things that came up were, first of all, calling lecturers by their first name. Secondly, that if you don't do your work, nobody chases you, which is interesting in itself. And thirdly, that whole sense that nobody's out to get you, they're there to support you and help you progress. And that's on the academic side. So it's a very different adventure to what they may be experiencing coming from secondary school. And then, of course, in their own lives, that they are, like, students are human beings, they're people. I know all the questions are coming about timetables and everything else, but as human beings in college, they grow up. And we try to help them and support them in every way possible. I mean, things like a grandparent passing away has a huge impact on the student. And our services are there to give all the support to help them be fully alive in the university. And so whatever we can do to help on that academic side, the year tutors, like I know some courses are dividing, put up 3, where they normally have 1 year tutor, putting in 3 or 4 this year to help the first year settle in. That's amazing work, and it's fantastic they're doing that. And that's maybe some of the questions that are coming in. Even though you hear the word orientation this week, a lot of the orientation is around the bigger picture. But they're going to start meeting their course coordinators at the end of the week. They're the ones that will tell them about class contact time. They're the ones that will tell them about timetables. They're the ones that will tell them about equipment. So we're moving from generals to specifics. And the other thing, we about 50% of our courses have peer mentors, and they're second years who have just survived first year. And hopefully most of your children will have a peer mentor and tell them how to get through first year well. So maybe, David, that's I hope that's an answer to your question. But at the end of the day, it was a phenomenal survey, and I'm going to put it on Twitter tomorrow, done that I did with the second years about the first years. They actually, one of their big concerns, and it broke my heart when I read it, they said they hope that these poor students coming in are not going to be like second level students in a third level institute. And the students were missing the dynamic of engagement. And it wasn't just with the other students, it was with staff as well. They missed talking to the staff. And from talking to staff today, over the last few days, we all would love to be back in the place. We would love to be around one another and in there with the students, but we can't be because of level 3 and Corona. But our desire is to be back together and getting on with the job in location, when and if we can. So I leave it at that, Dave, and if anybody else has any questions, they can field them on.
That's great, Anna. And just one area that just cropped up is in relation to if something happens within the family, and what are the options in relation to college? It's issues you mentioned, maybe death of a grandparent, but there can be issues in any given family.
Well, always, somebody, administrator in a course will always take a phone call. As you know, in third level with GDPR, we cannot deal directly with parents, because we can only deal with the child. Only with the student's permission can we do that, if they're over 18 years of age. But that's like, I had a case this week of sickness in a family, and the student gave permission to talk to the mother, and we resolved the issue. So we're bound by those things, but we're dealing with adults, and we have to treat everybody as adults.
Yeah, great.
We're there to help anytime. Phone call, text, email, it's always responded to when there's an issue of care and well-being of a student.
Great, thanks for that. And it's just one thing from the Career Development Centre, where you're genuinely interested in how students are progressing from second level, third level, and your son or daughter will be asked to do a transition questionnaire between week 4 and 6, and it looks at the dimensions of academic engagement, personal engagement, social engagement, and vocational engagement. So if you look at the transition through the lens of personal, social, and academic and vocational, how is your son or daughter doing? Be open in your communication with them, and we're really open to talking to them about all those kind of issues. And you can see the people on here, and all academic and other colleagues throughout the university are really keen to hear student stories. And I couldn't emphasize enough be proactive and be early in there in trying to highlight issues that come forward. When things begin to fester, disengagement can happen very quickly. And then if you miss Maths 101, you think, why should I go to Maths 102? So it's just being aware of those issues and those things that your son or daughter are going through, and encourage greater self-awareness for them to just take responsibility for it, but be actively, hand up if I'm struggling whatsoever with my confidence. The biggest gift you can give to yourself, in my experience, is I don't know how to do something. That's a great gift to give to yourself, and say, can somebody help me? I think it's a real great thing to do. I'll jump over back to Rachel here to.
Yeah, great. And I suppose I just want to reassure everybody who's live with us on the website that we do have all of these questions here, and we are going to be going through those. A lot of them are about very specific programs, so we won't be able to give you specific answers, but we will be able to give you guidelines in terms of the timetables. But just before we move to that live feed of questions, I'm just going to introduce our 2 final colleagues and panelists tonight. And actually a huge amount of the questions are probably, I see some questions about laptops and spec and all the rest. So we have Raymond Coyne, who is part of our financial aid office, and we have Elaine O'Connor, who's actually the manager of the financial aid and accommodation office here tonight. So Elaine, I know your camera isn't working because you're actually on campus trying to sort out lots of things for us tonight. But I just, a couple of the queries that have been coming in from parents is that they're worried that they haven't had timetables yet, and they're not sure how often their sons or daughters are going to need to come to campus, and if they do, what way will accommodation work in and around that area. Could you talk to us a little bit about the huge work that your team have been carrying out over the summer to work with accommodation providers for this exact scenario?
Certainly, Rachel, and thank you very much for inviting us here this evening, and apologies, as I say, for not having a camera. If I could just briefly explain that we don't have our own campus accommodation in TU Dublin, but we do have arrangements with 6 providers around the city, all very close to all of our city campuses, and also within commuting distance to Tala and Blanchardstown. These student hubs offer a discount to TU Dublin students, and this year they've gone further, and they are most of them are offering 3-day weeks or 2-day stays at a reduced rate. One provider, for example, JB's Deaf Village on the Navan Road, they're offering a 3-night stay for €39 a week. The prices vary, Rachel, depending on the type of accommodation. Some are single ensuite bedrooms, some are shared bedrooms, but all of the information on those prices is available on our website.
Great.
I would also say that the providers are very much aware that parents may be struggling this year in particular from COVID-19 issues, or that they may have other children who are also studying in other parts of Ireland, and they are entering into, like, for example, maybe allowing a student to just book for 1 term. Depending on their timetable, as I said, to book for reduced rates. It's worth your while going onto our website, choosing one of those providers that most suits your children's needs, and phoning them and seeing if you can negotiate something with them. We also this year have host families. We've always had host families, and they're a great part of TU Dublin accommodation area. They are also offering shorter weeks, 1 or 2 night stays, depending on what you might need. Again, all of that information is available on the website. And we have a 24/7 booking pad called the Student Pad. And you can register there, and you can filter accommodation by 5 days, 7 days, 1 to 4 days, choose one that suits you. And again, contact the landlord or the homeowner and speak to them and explain what you're looking for, and they will always be helpful and obliging. I would also just like to say that student hubs are very professional, in particular those 6 student hubs. They are well able to deal with any issue that could come as a result of COVID-19, be it that there is an unfortunate outbreak within the establishment, or that you have to restrict your movements, or all of the hygiene and all of the social distancing practices. They are well versed and well equipped to deal with anything that will come their way in relation to that. So you need to have no worry.
That's fantastic. And the same thing with the host families. I think there was a concern that maybe host families wouldn't, that we wouldn't hold up the numbers of host families, but there's plenty of accommodation. So that concern that students and parents may have had about getting good value accommodation actually may be one of the few silver linings of COVID-19 for our students this year, Elaine.
Certainly, Rachel. Yes, the host families didn't leave us this year. They're still very interested, and they have all been made aware of speaking to the student, as I say, around issues that may come around COVID, and also with the reduction in the Airbnb business. There are more, house shares and flat shares available for students as well. So all in all, accommodation is not the big worry that it usually is. And as I say, talk to any of my team. We're always available, and all of the information is on the TU Dublin website. And if you have any specific questions around any particular provider, host family, there's a few hotels there offering good value. Just come and ask us if you're unsure about anything, and we'll help you in relation to the location, to your college, or the price, or what's your best value for money.
That's super, Elaine. And I'm just going to talk to Raymond now, just in terms of there was a huge government announcement about a laptop loan scheme, and we have quite a lot of questions in about specs of laptops. And actually, if you go to our website, we have a huge amount of information and links with HEAnet to purchase particular specs of laptops that are appropriate at 3rd level at good value, and there's lots of software packages, so you can explore that on our website. But Raymond, you might just chat us through how students are going to access that laptop loan offer, and how quickly the university will be able to turn that around for students.
Yeah. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks everybody for tuning in. So the basics of the laptop loan scheme. through this HEA funded scheme, the university has been able to acquire over 1,000 laptops. And basically the way that these are going to be distributed is to our most disadvantaged students, those from ethnic minorities, those from extremely low income families. The way to apply, you would go through the TU Dublin website, right down the very bottom at news and events. Over on the right hand side, there's a news item titled Applications Open for Laptop Loan Scheme. Through that link, the student can access the online application. They'll be requested to submit various support documentation, and maybe whether they qualified for SUSI or not, those kind of details. Those will be assessed and the laptops will be distributed that way. A lot of queries that I've been getting are in reference to people who are worried that they won't qualify for the laptop loan scheme. But what I would reassure people with is that those who don't qualify for the laptop loan scheme will still be eligible to apply for the Student Assistance Fund, which my office and Elaine's office runs. So through those means, people may still be able to require funding to purchase a laptop.
Great. And an e-zine went out this week to all students, and in the second e-zine there was details there about that laptop loan offer, so students can recheck that email and check that e-zine as well. And thanks a million for that information on the financial assistance. All of the details about all the different streams of funding that are available to students are up there on your financial aid website. And again, that's mean tested, Raymond, but there's a huge variety of assistance there available for students.
Yeah, I mean, through the Student Assistance Fund, students can get financial aid for things like rent, food, heat and light, class materials, travel, compulsory travel, as well as various emergency funds for things that may not be covered by the other things. And all of that can be applied through our website. We actually have a new online application which is going live next week from the 6th of October onwards.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And Elaine, you know, you've a lot of experience in this area, and you would kind of echo Alan's point that if any family, you know, it's been a very difficult 6 months personally, probably or professionally, emotionally for a lot of families, but some families are really going to feel a financial strain, particularly over the next 12 to 18 months. So the university is really able to step in here and assist students if that's the case.
Yeah, we are indeed, Rachel, and we're very aware that, as I say, there may be people this year who are struggling or finding it a strain financially who wouldn't ordinarily find themselves in that situation. Even if you don't qualify for SUSI, you may well qualify for our Student Assistance Fund. So it's definitely worth your while having a look at the website and seeing what the criteria and the terms and conditions are. I would also say that we do take extenuating and exceptional circumstances into account. We work very closely with the chaplaincy, the medical centre, the counselling service, and all of our friends in campus life. We work very closely with the Students' Union, and we take referrals where students are often referred to us by maybe by their class tutor. You know, maybe we have, like, if a student is struggling and their lecturer or their tutor notices it, they contact us, and we will always do our best to take care of them. You know, there's usually we'll find some bit of funding to take care of people who don't come under the normal and general scheme wherever we can at all. So I would always say, as Dave said earlier, don't wait, you know, don't limp across the line. You know, if you find that you're finding it difficult, that you've used money to pay your fees, the one thing I would say is, and we get a lot of queries about this, the HEA criteria does not allow us to give funding for fees. And we get a lot of calls from parents who are very distressed and upset about fees. What I can say is we can, if you qualify for the Student Assistance Fund and you meet the criteria and we're able to help you, we can give you money towards living expenses and other day-to-day expenses that might allow you to pay, you know, to put your money towards your fees. But unfortunately, we just can't directly assist with fees. But we are there to help in lots of ways, and we would also be help students. While we're talking to students and dealing with their applications, we would discover lots of different areas where they might need a bit of help or support, and we will signpost those on, similarly the way our other colleagues in Campus Life would signpost students to us. So those referral signposts are very important, and we do work with all of the other areas, so you can always ask us if we can help you with information on those areas too.
No, that's brilliant. And Noel, sorry, did you have your, yeah?
Just 2 points that I wanted to make, colleagues. One was that, in terms of, it was mentioned of the HEA net offer, which is a really, really good offer around laptops. Just to say that somebody mentioned this evening that they had run out, there was such a demand for laptops that there was a kind of an 8-week lead-in time. So I'm only just suggesting that until we confirm that was just late this afternoon, and I haven't confirmed whether that is the case or not. Just to be conscious of that, so that if you are going through the HEA net website, which is a really, really good website and is an excellent value for money, that you can confirm when they can actually deliver the laptop.
Okay,
and secondly, just to say, colleagues, that we also have the counselling service where we have 8 full-time counsellors available between the medical and pastoral, and those are entirely for students again, and they're all online now as well. Do you know what I mean? So they can access, students can access them by email and by phone.
And again, these are all free, confidential, professional services. So just to reassure you and that message, that all of us within the team in Campus Life will signpost, and we work very, very closely with our academic partners and our Students' Union colleagues to make sure that no student will slip through the net, that we do everything that we can. And there's a real caring ethos and a community ethos, despite the fact that we are now the largest university, and it's one thing that we cherish and we intend to hold on to. So please be reassured as parents and guardians that we do our utmost for every student that comes to us. But we do need to know, and you do need to get in touch with us, because we can't do anything unless the student presents to us. So thanks so much to our panelists, and we fielded quite a lot of questions. Sorry, Dave. Yeah, we're just going to look through the questions now.
In relation to kind of the integration piece, getting to know your classmates and things like that, that's probably the most difficult aspect, and there's no magic wand for this. But I'm just going to ask Siobhan maybe to just jump in from the academic side of things about that kind of integration of the class identity.
Absolutely. And, it is really very important. At the end of June, we said goodbye to our current 4th years, and, you've made friends for life in college, and that starts the day you start in 1st year. So from an academic point of view, there is an awful lot that's going to happen for our students in 1st year over the next couple of weeks. So, for example, within modules, on Brightspace, some lecturers might put them into small groups of 2 or 3 or 4 to do small pieces of work, not big pieces of work, but small pieces of work together online. So that'll be one way that students will get to know a small number of people, albeit remotely. Within practical sessions, students are operating in small groups, so with the intention of them getting to know those small groups. I know another worry that lots of us have, and I'm speaking as a parent of college-age children, how will they know how to do their assignments? How will they know what's expected of them? And that's a big question, but I can absolutely assure you that the lecturers involved, the class tutors, will absolutely guide the students step by step through what's involved. They will create every opportunity that's possible for the students to interact with each other and to get to know each other. I was at one induction session yesterday with our general science level 8 students, and so it was the 30 students and a number of staff, and by the end of it the students had set up their own WhatsApp group. Thankfully we weren't part of it, but they had that done. So we hadn't asked them to do that, but we facilitated them in that session to find ways of communicating with each other, and we facilitated that as much as they can. Then they headed off and did their own thing, which is really fantastic. But that mightn't happen in every class. So like, for example, I will have my first lecture with my 1st year group at 2 o'clock tomorrow. I hope you're all not going to come, but let that go. I hope the students come. And they will all have a piece of work to do with another student before this week is out. It'll take the whole of 10 minutes. It won't take long. It really isn't hard. It's physics. They're all going to think it's hard, but it really isn't what I'm going to ask them to do. It'll take literally 10 minutes, but the point is they'll have to they will interact with another person in the doing of that. So that's going to be going on across lots of modules. That's going to be going on in how Moya and her team and the Students' Union are reaching out in terms of clubs and societies. So a student might be interested in karate, or they might be interested in drama, or they might be interested in, Moya better speak to this than I would, in all of the various clubs and societies. So there'll be opportunities for the students to engage in those activities as well. So from a very formal academic point of view, we will create those opportunities. From the clubs and societies, there will be opportunities. The students themselves will take it and run with it, as that group that I was with yesterday did. But we will be very careful to mind the students in relation to that bit of socializing. Every class group has a year coordinator. As Alan said, in some cases, there'll be more than one for some groups to help that along. In my school, for example, we will meet each class group once a fortnight to facilitate that. It'll be an online meeting, but we'll have little activities that will be designed to get the students to integrate with each other. And we will do that regularly. And other schools will do it slightly differently, but all with the same intention of helping students to understand what's expected of them, to find a way of getting to know each other, and then to build on that. And of course, the on-site activities, which are restricted at the moment, I just saw a question coming in there, they are restricted to required practical sessions at the moment. And that's because we're in this 3-week lockdown. We're not allowed do things on site that can be done remotely at the moment until this phase is over. So it's important to bear that in mind. But a lot will be going on. And if I could give any students that are here and parents a piece of advice, is don't be afraid to get involved. Don't be sitting on the sidelines waiting. You know, you don't have to do a lot to get involved, but reach out.
That's great, Siobhan. Another question or query that's coming in, and I know you can only speak to the College of Sciences and Health, and this is in relation to other areas, but there's a concern that, you know, given that students will only have elements of their practical lab or their core components, as you were saying, and many of the university's programs are, I suppose, very practical based. There's a concern that, you know, will the full course be able to be covered? You know, will all the learning outcomes be met? I think you can reassure everybody on those aspects.
Absolutely. We have examined every single program, every module within every program, every learning outcome within every module, and every learning outcome within the program to ensure we can meet those learning outcomes. And that means that the student has the skill-based knowledge, attributes, and qualities that we need them upon graduation. So I'll just give you one small example, and it'll only take 30 seconds. So in physics, for example, we've lots of students from biology and chemistry who do physics. Their core laboratory, their core practical work, let's take a biology student, is in biology. So they won't be doing physics practicals on site in the way they normally do because they'd be too busy doing their biology practicals on site. So we've developed a whole program of practical activities that the students will engage in at home. And I do apologize now for any mischief that's gotten up to in the name of physics in the homes of the country, but some really nice, really good learning activities that cover those learning outcomes. So while a biology student who normally does physics labs won't be doing on-site physics labs, they will be doing equivalent pieces of work at home to match those learning outcomes. And I know colleagues in schools right across the university have done similar, and actually they're really lovely, exciting programs. And as I say, I do apologize for any mess that's caused in the process.
So there'll be slime labs and all sorts going on in people's kitchens.
That'll be chemistry, not physics. But the point is that we have taken an awful lot of care to ensure that the learning outcomes are met. And that's important, not just for us to know, but it's important for our accrediting bodies. It's important for our regulating bodies. And they're the external organizations who come in and say, this particular degree program meets the requirements of architecture, engineering, business, science, whatever it might be. So we are responsible not just to our student body, not just to ourselves and to TU Dublin, but to those accrediting bodies as well. So we've been very careful to ensure that all learning outcomes will be met.
Right. And there's a lot of questions coming in around equipment as well. If
And
students
books.
haven't received their timetable yet,
Yeah.
now they're not specific to science and health, they're
I
about
know.
all of our practical subjects, but there will be grace given to students in terms of
Oh,
having all of this PPE and everything in place. And Jennifer, you may want to come in on that with Siobhan as well.
And I'll be brief. Absolutely, students will. I noticed one question coming in about uniforms in food and knives and things like that. Students will be given instructions as to how to access that type of material. In every module, they'll be given instructions about what they might need. You know, it might be as simple as a calculator, it might be a white coat, it might be, you know, safety goggles, it might be a set of knives if it's a food related course, whatever it might be. And they'll be given information on where to acquire them, how you go about getting them. And yes, students will be given a little bit of time in order to do it. There was another question I saw there about books and textbooks. First of all, Noel did say that all of the textbooks are available in the library. If there are books that need to be purchased, nobody's going to be told you need it tomorrow. So there will be a little bit of grace given there. In relation to timetables, they are available online via CMS Go. Timetables are always change. That's just the nature of the beast. People think they're static, but they really, really aren't. But at orientation, the year coordinator, the program tutor will go through the timetable day by day, event by event with the students so that they really understand what they have to do. There was a question there as well about how will a student know if it's an on-site event or an online event, and that will be explained to students. But if it's on-site, it will give a room number. If it's an online synchronous event where the student has to show up at the right time in the right place online, it'll have the word synchronous in the event. If it's one where the material has been recorded and the students look at it whenever they want, and by a particular date, it'll be called asynchronous. But all of that will be explained at induction.
And also, just before Jennifer comes in, just to reassure students that we spent the whole summer developing a student success module, which has key components in it. And I think about 50% of our first year intake so far have registered in that module. But that module takes students all the way through everything from the Brightspace, which Siobhan was talking about, which is our virtual learning environment here in City Campus, to the Teams tool that we use as a communication tool, to all of the different types of software that students will need to engage with at a deeper level. And indeed, our library partners have added information to that. And I see a huge amount of questions coming in about disability and accessing the disability services. And we don't have a colleague from disability here tonight, but they do have a huge amount of resources available online. And they're available online, they're available by email, by phone. So please do make yourself aware of them. Even if you have come through the Hear and Dare scheme and you haven't heard anything back, maybe just give them a quick call, or all the details are there on the website. And there's a huge amount of information in the student success module. So, you know, if you're a parent, you might just ask your son and daughter, have they enrolled yet in that module? But that's really designed to assist students over the whole of semester 1 and semester 2 with the blended learning experience. Jennifer,
Rachel,
you wanted to come in there?
Rachel, sorry, I just wanted to address
yeah.
that particular Dare query. In relation to that, asking whether you should apply or not, I would just encourage everybody to apply, particularly anybody who's a Dare or here student. The thresholds are there, but it'll be linked to demand basically. So those who are most disadvantaged, they're the people that the machines will go to first, and then from there on, the circumstances may change. But yeah, I just encourage everyone to apply, particularly the person who asked the question.
Great, sorry, thanks Raymond. Jennifer, sorry, you were going to come in there?
Yeah, okay, just to tell people, I know there's a lot of questions. First one I'll just mention about, people have mentioned about emails and logins to Brightspace and email. So the email that had the details of how to register and that login and PIN, they also contained a login and a password for Brightspace and email. Now, if you didn't get it, if you contact the registration service, I think their phone number is 01220 6002, or there's 01220 6003. There's also registrations. I'll just get the email address now, just that they will reissue it for you. But you might just check, because it will definitely be in the email somewhere. So they may have gone to spam and things like that. So just to keep an eye on that. So it's registrations.city@tudublin.ie. The other thing I would say is there's a lot of information that's on the website. People have been asking about timetables. So what we did is, because as Siobhan said, timetables do change, and we are in sort of a difficult position in this 3 weeks because we've had a lot of changes. So there's a couple of things. There's a section when you go onto the TU Dublin website, on the top screen on the menu bar, there's a for students. And when you click on that, that brings you up a link, and it brings you into a number of brilliant things. There's a starting a TU Dublin website, which contains a really good information video from the president and an introduction, information on getting started, and there's a really nice video about all the kind of terminology. There's the information about a lot of things there, and the orientation timetable. Also on that page, before you get in there, there is information on the timetables there. And for each program, it indicates the day of the week that the students may be attending. Now, that may obviously be a little bit fluid over the next couple of weeks with some of the restrictions, because again, where maybe that day involved things that could be done online, they may be moved away. So I think as a general rule, and I would say on some of the orientations this week, there have been some changes. Now, a lot of the information is being sent then to the students' email. Looking at numbers today, about 90% of our first year students have registered. So I'm fairly confident that those emails are going out and being processed. But just, I think, keep an eye on emails for changes. And we are updating that orientation schedule as soon as we get any information onto it.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of kind of specific timetable questions there. And as Siobhan and Jennifer said, it's up on the website and part of your program orientation. So it's really to encourage students to go along to those orientations. And in a lot of instances, a lot of that orientation material is up either in Brightspace or up on the website. So it's really important that students do engage with Brightspace, because a lot of the orientations are taking place in Brightspace. And the links, as Siobhan said, well, if you'll receive a link in your Brightspace module to the event that you're attending. So some other questions that are coming in here are just in relation to refund of fees. So if my son or daughter accepts the 3rd or 4th round, will they be able to get a refund on their fees?
Yes.
That is the case, Jennifer, isn't it?
Yeah.
And a lot of questions about laptops and specs. And as I said, there's a huge amount of information on the website about laptops and specs before you go out and buy anything. But again, your sons or daughters will be in their orientations this week, and they'll get lots of program advice on that if there's specifics, particularly for, if students are in film and broadcasting or computer science, or, in areas where they need particular laptops and particular specs. Please do wait and get the program advice on that, because you don't want to purchase something and then find that it's not right. But in the main, for the majority of students, the specs that we have up on the website will be perfectly adequate for what they need. Questions about reassurance in terms of, we have provided a huge amount of resources online to help students through this blended learning experience. And as Siobhan said, all of the academic staff are acutely aware of the situation and will be taking particular care. We always take particular care of first years, but this year we'll be taking particular care of first years.
Come in, Rachel. There's actually just on that, there's a question about the 365 software, and that is free.
That's free, yes.
Have a TU Dublin account. And just to say again, within that getting started guide, there's a thing called Getting Online in there. And that includes a number of videos about using Brightspace. There's a whole section on Brightspace. There's also a whole section, there's Wi-Fi across all the campuses, EduRoam, about getting up online and that. So for students coming on campus, that's a really good thing. So around that getting started, there's 4 or 5 pieces there, but there's a really brilliant section on getting online, and there's loads of videos and interactive pieces for them to get information.
And just on that, right, as well, we developed a little video getting ready, our little questionnaire getting ready for remote learning, which links to a lot of the resources that Jennifer and Siobhan were referencing. I think Noel wants to jump in very quickly.
Yes,
there.
sorry, no.
Very briefly, just to pick up, Rachel, you mentioned the student success module. Again, really is well worth doing. This year it really is important. So it just underpins students as they move through the system. So I think there's a huge amount of resources there. All targeting first years in particular, so really to take advantage of them.
Lots of very specific questions there. Thank you for that. No, lots of very specific questions there on the laptop loan scheme. And there's a very detailed breakdown on the website, Raymond, in terms of who's eligible, who's not eligible. So I'd encourage people, I'm sure Raymond, you would do the same, to go to the website and have a look through all of those details.
Yeah, there's also an email address which has been launched, I think, just this week. So it's laptoploan@tudublin.ie. People can send their queries to that if they're not happy with what's on the site.
Great, brilliant. In terms of qualifying for laptop, do we have timelines on how soon people will know? It's just open, so I would imagine it'll be a couple of weeks.
No.
It's just open, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
I don't know if anybody else has a deadline. I'm not sure.
I think it's open for a week, Rachel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think the notion is that laptops are all there and they're ready to be distributed. So I think around the 8th of October, I think, Raymond.
Okay.
It's around that week they are to be allocated.
Okay.
It's
great.
open until the 5th of October. So then it will just, I suppose, depend on the demand and processing, but IT have them all good to go. But it will take a little while just to probably get them distributed, but we'll process them as quickly as we can.
Okay, and lots of questions, and I'm conscious that we had promised people that we would be finished by 8, and we're at 8:05 now. So I'm just reading through the questions here online to see, but lots of questions about whether or not lectures are recorded and available, and yes, they are. And I think Siobhan has answered that. And in many instances, they'll be loaded in Brightspace. So as I said, that engagement with Brightspace is really critical for students. So we couldn't recommend those online videos more. Also, will this session be recorded tonight? Yes, it will. And it'll be available on the website. And any questions that we feel haven't been answered, we will have up on an FAQ page located on this web page. Lots of the video will be posted. Yeah, I'm being told here that the video will be posted as soon as the event is over. So by tomorrow anyway, you'll certainly be able to access that video. Lots of questions about Cathal Street and the culinary arts. Again, our colleagues in Cathal Street, it's really the level 3 restrictions. They had been hoping to bring people in, you know, to collect equipment and meet and greet and see all the kitchens and all the rest. But as soon as the level 3 restrictions came in, that had to be changed and altered. So new orientation timetables have gone up for areas like hospitality management, culinary arts. I know culinary arts had their orientation today, and hospitality management tourism are having it on the 6th. So there is changes there, and all those changes have been modified on the website, I think, just this afternoon. So but that really is just a case of the level 3 restrictions coming in. So students may have to bear with us a little bit in terms of those levels. In terms of students registering for modules, again, this is program information that students will receive at their orientation. They will be asked to self-enroll in modules, but they'll be given direction by the academic team in terms of doing that. And there's lots of tutorial videos and assist videos online for all of that. So I think that is all of the questions here. I suppose I'd love to give our panel just kind of just to sum up and say goodbye, maybe just one tip or one thing that they remember from their first week or day at university, or one tip that they would give to, if you're parents of, I know many of you are parents of students currently. So one top tip that you would give of advice either to parents or to a student if they were coming on board. And we might start in the same order that we did the questions. So Noel, I might ask you first for your top tip.
Very quickly, I would say, and it's been mentioned already, engage, for the student to engage really and to become their part of a community. And I think it's all about partnership. We have the student center stage, but we have the parents and guardians and family and friends. We have the academic community. We have all the support staff, all the professional support staff, all the administrative staff, clubs, societies, all of those. And we are hoping that we will revert back to level 2 over the coming weeks, which will allow a lot more participation. So we hope it's a temporary arrangement. But in the interim, while all of this is happening, engage and get involved and follow up on queries and tease out issues. So that would be my piece of advice.
Brilliant. Thank you, Noel. And thanks for everything tonight. Siobhan, your piece of advice?
Thanks, Rachel. My piece of advice would be about, it's a fabulous adventure you're launching on. It's different to what we all expected. But the key for me is about communication. And please keep in touch with us as academics as well. What we want is for you to succeed. That is our goal. Our goal is to support you to succeed. So please communicate, please keep in touch, and try and keep up to date. There's a little bit of time management skills involved in keeping, you know, your modules up to date. So communication and keep up to date. And please talk to us, because I certainly love engaging with students. It's what makes this role for me as an academic, without a doubt.
Thanks, Siobhan. Thank you so much. Conor, do you want to remember back to your college days? What piece of advice might you give?
I can't remember back that far, Rachel, I'm afraid. But the thing I would say, and it often strikes me throughout the year, is that from our point of view, there's no issue too small. Okay, sometimes students worry that they might be wasting our time, or that they feel it's not a valid concern. But I can guarantee you, whatever the issue is, we've heard it before, we've seen it before. And if there's any little thing that's bothering your student at home, and if they won't talk to you, then get them to get in touch with us, and they may talk to us. But there's absolutely no issue too small. We're happy to see whatever it is bothering the students. Great,
thanks, Conor. Jennifer, pearls of wisdom?
Well, I suppose, and it sounds a negative one, but it is positive. Just because you maybe don't do so well in a module in the first attempt at an exam, there are an attempt to try again in the supplemental exams that take place. And, you know, first year is a difficult year, and people are getting used to it. But we do have assessments that go on year. But it's really important if students are not being well. We have a really good feedback process in place where students can get feedback on how they're doing. And if they don't do so well in maybe one assignment, they can make it up. And there is a chance to retake exams again in the autumn. So I would say just to people to stick with it. You know, sometimes there can be a tendency if someone's not doing well at the beginning to throw, throw the towel in, but don't. And again, there's loads of supports available. There is also things like the Maths Learning Centre and the Academic Writing Centre. We've loads of supports available. And as Conor was saying, you know, we've a whole army, to be honest, academic staff and the other support staff who work very closely together to get them through. So there's nothing that we don't have a resource to assist
on. I just see one question there. Where can I access the student success module? And that's through Brightspace, and you can enroll in that. Moya, your pieces of advice?
Well, I have to say, Jennifer's point, I did fully avail of the supplemental exams. I'm going to leave out avail of them. So my advice, I guess, would be to get involved. The year is going to be really unusual. It's going to be a bit weird. It's going to be a bit weird for all of us, but get involved in any way you can. I guess there's more for students. But yeah, there's so many things. Everything's online. It's so accessible this year. It kind of like so many students have part-time jobs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it can be difficult to kind of join things in college. So maybe that's the positives, that you can join from anywhere, you can do it anywhere. So I would say get involved would be my top tip for the year. So yeah.
Great, thanks Moya. Alan?
I'm going to remember back to last March when we were shut down overnight and everyone was in chaos and nobody knew what was happening next. And there were exams coming up and final years had to submit projects. And the last few days I've been talking to final years who graduated. And they're so excited, so thrilled. We'll get there. If we you get there quicker and better if we work together well. And just a little plug, last week on the Living Word, I did some reflections on going back to college, and they're on our TU Dub Chaplaincy Twitter. Might give you a few words of encouragement and perspective just to help us all get there. We will get there.
Brilliant, thanks. Ray, do you want to give us your piece of advice for students?
Yeah, just basically, if you're up the walls about your finances, email me and then we'll see what we can do for you.
there isn't a friendlier voice on the end of the phone, I have to say, Ray, so they'll be well served. And Elaine?
Thanks, Rachel.
Look, you've heard about all the support services. You've decided to come, just enjoy it. You're going to make great friends, as Siobhan said. It's the start of a new life, it's different. Just enjoy it. We're all here to help you, but mostly you know, make good friends and just, you know, do your best. And it's going to be a different year. We all know that, but you chose to come here before any of this. So you know what you want to do. Now just grasp the nettle and just enjoy it. Relax, be safe. We're all here to take care of you. All you have to do is just engage and do your best and enjoy it.
Great. And just before I give the last word and the wrap up to my colleague Dave, who I have to say I'm waiting with bated breath for Dave's advice, because you know, he's fantastic with students and has got many a student through when they thought they might be in the right place or might not be in the right place. So I'm going to hand over to Dave, but I just want to remind everybody who's viewing this and has asked the question that the video will be uploaded on the page that you're currently viewing this on. So the video will be available on the page that you're currently watching on. And I'm going to say good night and thank you to everybody. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Dave for his final words of wisdom and maybe a wrap up on tonight's events. And so over to you, Dave, and thank you to all the panelists tonight.
Thank you, Rachel.
You're on mute, Dave.
My wife would be delighted I'm on mute. Just be very quick. I think you got a sense from all the panelists here that there's a great level of integration, I think, between the academic, the support services, professional services, and we all talk to each other on a regular basis. And I think that's probably one of the unique selling points of TU Dublin. It's a level of integration. It's not either or, it's a natural partnership, and that level of divide is simply not there. But I suppose for me, just 3 C's: connect with your, you know, online, offline, synchronous, asynchronous. So connect with your lecturers, your friends, your family, communicate, tell people how you're doing, be it good, bad, or indifferent, and commit. Make a commitment to yourself that you won't look back next year with regret to say, if only I did. So connect, communicate, and commit. And we're all there to support that journey. And thank you all for your time.
Everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. We hope you found it useful, and just watch us on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and on our Facebook page for more information and upcoming events. And we wish your son or daughter a great time here at our university, and we'll do our best to take care of them until they graduate. Thanks a million. Take care and good evening.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks.